Hey guys, Ed Chiu here, and I've been reading your comments on the internet, and I've been seeing that we're lacking some pro player commentary, so who better to join us than Chris Louie?
Hi, Ed. Great to be here.
So, Chris, please introduce yourself to the people at home that don't know who you are.
Hi, my name is Chris Louie, and this past weekend I got second place at DLC Las Vegas.
Cool, congratulations to you. So,
Thank
please
you.
give us an introduction about your TCG background.
So I played Yu-Gi-Oh when I was in high school. Very, very fun time. I quit around the Dragon Ruler spellbook format, um, and then I started playing again when Zodiac was Tier 0, and then I quit again, and I didn't play TCG since. Oh, actually, I played Hearthstone. That counts, right?
Yeah, of course, Hearthstone's really fun.
Yeah, it
Yes.
is.
So, please tell us how you got into Lorcana.
So how did I get in Lorcana? So there was this online client from days past, not to be named, I suppose, that I was playing online because a friend told me to try it. That was when Inklands was out, and I saw Spessie's video about Green Steel being like one of the best decks, and I wanted to try it out on that said online client. And yeah, I stomped everyone and climbed the ladder.
Cool. All right, so how many challenges have you been to so far?
How many challenges I've been to so far? So my first challenge was in Toronto, where we went
Yeah,
together.
we went together, yeah.
Yeah, with our friends. And second challenge was this past weekend in Las Vegas.
Cool. So what were your expectations going in? So you've already been to Toronto, right? So what were your expectations going to Vegas?
So after day one of Toronto, I finished what, like 3-3-3, or 3-2-3, or something like that, 3-2-4. Uh, wasn't really happy with that, and I just wanted to be able to make day two, try to get my invite, so I can go to Continentals with my friends. And yeah, I was just beyond excited to even make day two in Las Vegas, and can't believe I even got a Mickey and to even play in the finals.
Cool. So yeah, please elaborate more on like when you got top eight, like what was that feeling like?
So when I got top eight, I'm sure if anyone's watched the feature match that I had against Kevin, I was all smiles, all laughter. I was just trying to have a good time, just playing it like how I would play someone like at locals or one of my friends at locals.
Yeah.
Just have a good time, like just have fun, see what happens, and whoever draws better wins, right?
Yep. So obviously you did really well. So of course there was probably a ton of prep going into this. So
Oh
can you
yeah.
give us some information about your preparation for this tournament?
So about 5 to 6 days before day one, which was a Saturday, I was very set on Steel Song, like 99%. Like I was gonna play Steel Song with 3 lanterns, 2 tinks, 2 swords, and like 4 piglets and 3 Lawrence. Um, that list, it felt really good to play in testing against Red Blue, even with the 2 swords. It was around like 18 uninkables, which is like pretty comfortable. I know some Steel Song players like to play 20, but I just couldn't justify going above 18. But then you, Ed, you're like, let's test. And I thought you were playing RP at first, because historically you just test RP against us, and you whip out Diablo Shift Diablo Sing Storm on me, and I was like, oh, that's new. Didn't expect you to play Green Steel. And then followed by a turn two Ursula Deceiver, sorry, and then turn three Pete to stop me from wheeling you. And I was like, oh, this deck's kind of good. Let's see what else I can do.
Yeah.
So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean the green steel deck kind of just came out of nowhere, right? And why do you think like all the top players were able to come to this conclusion to play green steel for this tournament?
So Green Steel does really well into the the breadth of the field in the meta at the moment. It's really good against Steel Song. It can really shut them down with cards like Ursula Deceiver and Pete. And if they don't have an answer to Ursula Deceiver Vol, that card can really punish your opponent and catch you up on the board. Um, it's good against red blue, good against most blue decks because they need to hyper ink using like Fishbone Quill and T-Pose, which kind of is helping your discard strategy. So yeah, I thought it was a pretty good choice
Cool.
overall.
Yeah. So I guess for tournaments, I guess our one of our important things that we think about is like the meta breakdown, right? So can you give the viewers some information about what you thought the expected meta was going to be in Las Vegas?
So the expected meta that I thought was what we had talked about, which was 25% red blue, about 20% steel song, 20% red purple, 10% blue steel, 10% green yellow, and then somewhere between 10% for like green steel, green purple, those kinds of decks. We even drew up like a big whiteboard for that. I'm not sure if that's still around, but after looking at like the day one breakdown, we were pretty correct, except for green steel. We didn't expect a lot of pro players to play green steel, or anyone to play green steel really. So I guess it was just like the worst kept secret of the weekend. Oh, I guess we have our
whiteboard. We got the whiteboard.
Our production manager has brought our whiteboard. Thank you for that.
You see, this is our meta prediction.
Our handwriting sucks.
Our handwriting sucks, but you know, this is where we were, and you know, we try to put our expected value of our win rates as well into the whiteboard.
Yeah, we thought green steel was only gonna be 5%. Yeah, we were very wrong about that.
Yeah, I mean we're pretty close, right? I think it was like 8%, maybe something like that.
Yeah, there was a lot more hyper aggro than we thought, though.
Yeah.
We only put 5% for hyper aggro, but that was like what 10% or something like that. Yeah. Something crazy.
Cool.
Oh, and then we really got it wrong with blue steel. Nobody took blue steel,
except you know
Jonathan Lamb.
Lamb.
Hey, shout out to you. Yeah. If you watch this, shout out, man.
But anyway, so I guess another question I think the viewers would want to know is like, how does each of these like meta decks like play against green steel? So let's go through each of them. So let's say green steel versus red blue. Like, what are the things that you're kind of looking for when you're seeing this matchup?
As the green steel player, I'm always looking for Prince John against the blue deck. You need to be able to recur your resources when you're discarding their hand. Otherwise, you run out of gas. Diablo is incredible in that matchup. It really shuts down Hiram. It also blocks them from playing Hiram on that turn, so they're forced to either ice block Sisu or brawl them or brawl the Diablo, and that gives you another turn to reestablish the board or even play another Diablo. But yeah, red blue, man. I feel like that deck is like probably the scariest matchup after this weekend. I got 2-0'd by it in Swiss, and then I had a really close game in top 16.
Yeah, I mean, I was also 2-0'd by it, and like I think if they're able to open like the pop hero rate, it's actually very hard to kind of come back from those kind of resources that they can get from that. But yeah, besides that, what do you think like the win conditions for Ruby Sapphire would be?
I feel like the win condition that I saw from my Swiss round 8 against Kevin from Team Labyrinth, around Team Labyrinth, I think it was TFM. He was on TFM, yeah, sorry. What he did was he stopped around 8-9 ink and just like parked himself there and was always playing like Tamatoa, Popsicle, and just being able to keep 1 or 2 cards left in hand, because I think he like may have assumed I had Bruno or some way to out his Tamatoa. And I think that's like what some Ruby Sapphire players make the mistake on, is like keeping the ink game so they can try to double Medusa or something, or like double Dragon, like they're playing it like it's the mirror or something. And I don't know, I think if you're a Ruby Sapphire player, like maybe try to console some some help. I don't know.
So the next one is, I would say probably Amber Steel.
Yes.
So what would you say, like how does Amber Steel versus like Green Steel usually go?
Oh man, that's actually a matchup that I thought we had practiced so much, but I only played one of them in Swiss, and I didn't play any on day 2. So my game plan against Amber Steel is to never play Baby Diablo on turn 1, even on the play. I don't think that card should that card should just be permanent ink against them. Try to establish Ursula Deceiver to see their hand, and also rip one of their songs, bringing them down 1 resource. Always try to take Strength of Raging Fire, because that's like their inkable song, and one of their not so great songs early game. They much prefer to be singing Storm or Zeus with like Ursula 2 or something, or with Cinderella. And then Pete. Pete is so important. It's critical that you have Pete. It gives you an extra turn to like either come back from the board or stop them from like just wheeling you and like gaining like incredible advantage. What else is there? If you can get an Ursula Deceiver Evolved to stick, it's like lights out if you have a song in hand. Yeah,
that makes sense. Like, yeah, from my experience as well, it's if they're able to flood the board and you can't stop it, usually that's how they win that matchup.
That's the problem with our deck, is like we have no way to really stop people from going wide. We don't have like swords or like beat prep or anything like that. Yeah. So that's like double tank, which is like kind of how you come back.
Kind of hard to play though, but yeah, it's a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
So next matchup is Ruby Amethyst. I guess Ruby Amethyst is a little bit less popular, but I think still something you have to consider, right? So what do you think about the matchup against Ruby Amethyst?
So I thought Green Steel was incredible against Ruby Amethyst. I think I only dropped one game over the course of 6 matches that weekend. I played 3 Ruby Amethysts in a row, rounds 1, 2, and 3, and then one more Ruby Amethyst in round 9. Oh, sorry, 5 matches then. Yeah, and one Ruby Amethyst in top 64. And I only lost one game across all those matches.
So in that one game that you lost, like, what do you think was the contributing factor to that?
The contributing factor was that I didn't start with Ursula 3-on-3, and I didn't have or Morph Beast. I think Morph Beast just if they don't brawl the Morph while they're on the play, they kind of fall behind because if you have if they don't respect the Morph, your Beast is drawing like 6 cards, or not 6 cards, 3 cards. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. So now that, you know, kind of the cat's out the bag, right? Everyone knows about the Green Steel deck. I'm sure everyone's going to, you know, start playing Green Steel. So you're going to have to worry about the mirror. So what do you think are the keys to the mirror?
Keys to the mirror, man. Oh, wow. Well, if anyone watched the finals, it's definitely having Shift Diablo on the play and having a song to sing to be able to kill their small Diablos so they don't do the same thing back to you. Sorry, excuse me. What other keys? I think Ursula 2 is also quite important. I feel like back in like set 3 when we were playing the mirrors back then, no one was keeping songs in their hand because they were always expecting Ursula 2-on-2 if they knew what they were playing against the mirror. Otherwise, you'd be playing like something like Flynn Rider or something, right?
Yeah.
What else is important? Oh, if they play Ursula Deceiver Revolve and you have a Pete in hand, be sure to play that Pete as soon as you see the Deceiver Revolve because they're going to try to double storm you or double sudden chill you. And you don't want them to do that. You have to be able to establish like a way to beat that Ursula Deceiver Revolve, get that card off the board as soon as possible so you can reclaim the board.
Cool, that makes sense. So maybe we should do like a deck profile now.
Oh, yeah. Let's do that.
Yeah, we have all the cards ready and... Let's see it.
Yeah. All right. So in our deck profile, we have the 4 Diablos, 4 Baby Diablo. Very good card. Our only 1-drop. The 4 Ursula Deceivers, one of the best cards in the deck. The 4 Morphs, another very good card in the deck. Card that every opponent now needs to respect, otherwise they're going to get beasted the following turn or possibly tank in 2 turns. The 4 Big Diablos, arguably like one of the most unfair cards in the game. If you don't have an answer for it, kind of just gains way too much advantage. And playing multiple can just win you a game. Ursula Deceiver Revolve, another card that you have to respect. Need to answer it immediately, or else it could also win you the game. And that's why we like Green Steel. Is that like the deck plays all these cards that are just like very unfair by themselves. Or very unfair with like multiple copies of them. And Prince John does that very well. Having multiple Prince Johns, being able to draw more cards from discarding a single card can just take games by itself. And then Pete's. The reason to play Steel right now, this card is incredible. Being able to just shut off your opponent's actions for a turn. Most decks are playing like what, at least 8 actions, like Ruby Amethyst, like, or 12, right? For
B-Prep, Friends,
B-Prep,
Brawl.
Yeah. That's pretty good. The only decks that aren't playing a lot of actions are like Green-Purple, right?
Yeah, only Friends, yeah.
And then the 4 Annas. This card overperformed over the weekend. Just being able to rip a card on turn 5 or being able to banish a damaged character like a Tamato or like problem card on the board like a Tinkerbell. Very good card. And then the big cards, the 4 Beast. 4 Beast, yeah. Beast, just don't even have to talk about it. Just so much card advantage. And then the 4 Tanks, arguably one of the most controversial cards because of the cost and like, I guess, its survivability in the current meta. Like going into a Steel Song meta, they're playing like, what, 3 Zeus minimum? So they're always gonna have like some kind of answer for it. But this isn't really for Steel Song. I mean, it's good against Steel Song for sure. It's mainly just to turn off your opponent's beasts. But also to put damage on the board. And there's like an interesting combo where if you morph and then Tink on turn 4, and you Anna on turn 5 to like banish something, That's like that has come up before. And then the 4 Hypnotize. Now this card was the best card of the weekend. I keep saying that about every card, but like this card for sure was the best card of the weekend because I don't think anyone expected it, especially on turn 6. Like after playing or having a Prince John from turn 4, an Anna on turn 5 to discard a card, and then having the Hypnotize on turn 6, and then inking something and playing another Hypnotize or some combination of that and like Sudden Chill was just so punishing for the opponents that weren't expecting discard after discard after discard. And then on the rest of the songs, the standard 4 Sudden Chill, 4 Let the Storm Rage On, and then 4 Strength of Raging Fire for Ursula Deceiver Vol, and just like the best songs in the game at the moment for the green steel color combination. And then to wrap it all up, it's the 4 We Don't Talk About Brunos.
So yeah, we just did the deck profile, and I guess a lot of people have questions about like Robin Hood, Smee, Smash, Muses, and Hidden Cove.
Yeah.
So can you please comment about those cards?
I can go in order. Arguably all good cards, all good choices, but I think the way that we wanted to build the deck was to just rip your opponent's hand completely and also go for the super nuts, which is Shift Diablo on turn 1 or turn 2, sorry. And be able to sing a song to like start that advantage and make your opponent like really sweat for the win or sweat to win or have an answer immediately. So cards like Robin Hood, Robin Hood Shift, that's 8 cards in your deck if you're playing 4 copies of each that are too fair for the current metagame. A 2/2 for 1. The stats like seem good on paper, and the shifting on 3 with a 3/6 that draws a card when it's banished in a challenge seems good on paper. But when you're actually playing the deck the way that we've built it, there's really no way you'd be able to shift Robin Hood on 3 because you're better off just playing like a Diablo, like the 3-cost Diablo on 3, like just without even having it exerted, or even playing Prince John on 3, so you can start accruing that card advantage from like multiple Prince Johns from discarding your opponent's hand. We wanted to be able to play Anna on turn 5 almost every game. It seemed better than playing Beast at sometimes because you want to get rid of their resources, at least against Ruby Amethyst. I guess is a good example. Is like you want to rip their hand as fast as possible so that they can't get 6 ink or get the 7 ink to be able to Medusa your Beast. And let's say they do get the 6 ink, but they have no cards in hand, or they have 1 card in hand, and they are forced to, Medusa like your Diablo or Medusa your Anna, because it's questing for 2 every turn. Once they have no cards in hand, what are they gonna do? They top deck another Medusa. You're just gonna slap down your Beast and kill their Medusa eventually with like a Strength or something. So cards like Robin Hood don't have that same impact on the board, I don't think, like Beast or Anna. And let's go, I guess Smee next, right?
Smee, yeah.
So Smee was a card to consider. I think like our first list played 4 Smee, 4 Smash, in place of the Morph and Tinkerbell. But when we were playing those cards, we couldn't take a game off Hyper Aggro. that was quite depressing. But once we put in the Morph Tank, the matchup changed completely. We were super favored at that point. If they weren't able to befuddle the Morph, of course. What was the next card? Muses?
Next card, yeah. Smee, Smash, Muses, yeah.
Oh yeah, Muses. Okay, so Muses and Cove. So I don't think we gave Muses enough time to really test. We never actually even considered testing the mirror since we thought that we were not going to be playing against any green steals. Or if we were, we just thought that we would be able to at least 1-1. We thought it was more play draw dependent in this current format. Let's see. And I guess the same goes for Cove. We didn't really test out Cove at all.
Yeah. I mean, fundamentally, like our list is different from like the common list with like we're basically on 4 Tinkerbell over 2 Tinkerbell to Cove, and like we're 4 Anna instead of 2 Anna plus 2 Muses, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, those are fundamental differences, and it's like, do you think if we had those cards instead, the deck would have performed differently?
I don't think so. I think like having the consistency factor was like what got me to day 2 in the first place.
Yeah.
Like I feel like there was a lot of spots where like I needed the 3rd Tinkerbell, or I needed the 3rd and 4th Anna to like beat a lot of the RP players that I played, That card was, yeah, easily one of the best cards. I mean, Hypnotize as well. Like, I don't think you can cut Hypnotize either.
Yeah. I mean, going forward, like, what do you think are some possible changes, if any, you would make to the deck?
I guess one change is like, I guess one Anna for like one big Cinderella. I feel like there were some spots where big Cinderella did come up. Because I feel like with this version of the deck that we were playing, we were able to ink every turn without losing too many resources, and feeling comfortable about what we're inking. Like if it's like, you know, a baby Diablo, even like a Deceiver of All when it's like pretty late into the game or pretty deep, and like we've used maybe 6 to 8 of the, you know, Deceiver of All range songs. So it's like, does it really get value from the spot? Probably not. And so we were always like around 7, 8 ink, 9 ink. Like we would able to slap down like, you know, multiple Annas, like 2 Annas in one turn sometimes. But Big Cinderella would be also like one of those huge threats, and it's also a card that's very hard for Steel Song to deal with, unless they have an extremely wide board. But our deck kind of like checks them from being too wide. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of ink, right? Like our deck count like has 16 uninkables. Do you think that was like a little high because, you know, the common decks usually ran like maybe 14?
Yeah.
So do you think that affected like the gameplay?
Not at all, honestly. I feel like I always had like good inking decisions every turn. Maybe I just got lucky, but yeah, maybe it's because of the experience that we've had with Green Seal, or like just playing Lorcana in general. But I never felt like inking any card would have like any serious regrets or like impact on the rest of the game, because we play 4 copies of those cards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you think like having that consistency like even like lowered like kind of the mental fatigue of having to play in the tournament?
Oh, 100%. It's like, you know, we have this like very consistent 60 card list. Like, you just gotta open the cards that you want to see and, you know, hope for the best, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess one other thing is like there's a lot of new green steel players, right? And like they're not gonna really know like how the deck functions. So let's just go over some like examples of things that you want to see, especially going blind when you're like on the play. Like what kind of cards are you kind of looking for? What kind of play patterns are you trying to achieve?
So I'd say it really depends on your play style. But I guess for this type of deck, it's kind of a high roll deck where like if you are on the play, you kind of really want to see Shift Diablo. So keeping the cards possible for that is really good. But if you know, don't trust yourself to always, or not to always, but to even hit Shift Diablo if you mull 7. Keeping like Ursula Deceiver of All with like Storm or Strength is pretty good. Or even a combination of Ursula Deceiver of All, Sudden Chill, and Prince John is extremely safe. You can never go wrong with that. Those 3 cards together are just like, you know, a +2 if the Ursula Deceiver of All sticks. Sometimes I kept a single beast in case I got the morph. Like if my hand was just like a bunch of like uninkables I didn't want to see, or like Pete's, I would just keep the beast. I think actually that did come up. Yeah, I played against what was it? It might have been Ruby Amethyst, but I didn't know. But it was like a blind matchup. But my starting mull was like horrible. It was like 7 cards. There were like 3 Pete's, 2 Storms, a Chill, and a Beast. And I was like, okay, like I'm just gonna keep Beast and like hope for the best. And then I got rewarded. I got a morph.
And that's how the deck operates, right? Like it's very consistent. You're able to see the cards that you need at the right times.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, how about on the draw? Like, does that affect your decision if you know you're on the draw?
100%. I feel like when you're on the draw, that extra card means so much, especially when going for your game plan of getting Shift Diablo. It changes the percentages by decent amount. I actually don't know the exact number. We could probably pull it up. Our analyst could probably pull it up. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, on the draw, I feel like it's kind of greedy to go for Deceiver of All on 3, just because, you know, there's like all these opportunities to get peated in the mirror. But even against like Ruby Amethyst, like you need to have some way to answer Rabbit, because if you're on the draw, they're gonna have Rabbit before you even have like a proper singer to kill it. So maybe you do have to stick Ursula Deceiver of All on the board on 3.
I would say most of it's probably ink, right? But you know, if you have a good like kind of opener and you see, you know, it's safe, then you can play Ursula, right?
Yeah.
So I guess another kind of skill I feel like, you know, players have is like after you see what deck you're playing against, like how would you adjust your strategy, right? And I guess there's like a huge matrix, but like let's just go over some of like kind of the archetypes, right? Like
Yeah,
let's say
yeah.
you're going against like some kind of control strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Like what are you primarily looking for, like when you're on the play and when you're on the draw? Once you know you're going against like red blue or like blue steel kind of decks.
Yeah, this actually came up in my top 16 match against Red Blue. My opponent wasn't playing any Fishbone Quills, and I had no idea what his game plan was without Fishbone Quill because I've only played against, or tested against rather, traditional Red Blue lists. So game one, I kind of was like fumbling around trying to like figure out how the deck worked. So I was like really scared, like trying to play like extremely conservatively, just trying to discard as many cards as I could or take advantage of the board and some weird spots. I definitely feel like I misplayed a lot in that first game. Unfortunately, it wasn't a feature match, but otherwise we'd be able to review it. But I ended up losing that first game. But when I was like shuffling my deck, I was like thinking to myself like, wow, like okay, now I know like how this deck operates, utilizing how far I'll go whenever he could. Not even, or sometimes even skipping his ink, like, when you actually put the card in the inkwell face up, sometimes just skipping it altogether in favor of using like how far I'll go or one jump against a discard deck. And I feel like a lot of people could learn, or a lot of red blue players that do want to take red blue to Seattle could learn from that. Maybe test out some different play lines. And I feel like it really came down to I guess that mental switch that I had, where it's like, okay, if he's gonna try to do that every turn instead of like putting one card from his hand into his inkwell and just relying on how far I'll go, I'm just gonna keep it Deceiver. I'm just gonna keep as many Deceivers as I can, so I can just try to rip his one jumps, rip his how far I'll go. I want him to put cards into his inkwell from his hand, so I can ultimately discard. And that's kind of how I won game 2 and 3.
Yeah, Deceiver is definitely a very good card, and it's like, when do you play it? I think a lot of people ask, like, do you play it on 2, or do you, like, look at their hand first and play it later? Because, like, for example, like, you, against, like, red decks, right, you kind of want to put it right before they can be prep, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So, like, I guess that's, like, when do you want to play those type of cards?
It's very situational, but against red blue specifically, or control matchups that are playing like how far I'll go, as soon as they do their TPO turn, because I feel like most red blue players open TPO on 2, you're gonna want to play the Deceiver because a lot of lists are now shifting back to 4 how far I'll go, and that's kind of one of their best turn 4s if they don't have an item, and that's the big tell for me. If they don't start Popsicle, they're probably gonna play Tala, or they're gonna play how far I'll go on 4 or on turn 3 with 4 ink. So yeah, that's one of those situations.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. So I guess, okay, the next matchup, I guess, like aggro strategies, right? Let's say like, green purple or yellow purple, and I guess you can kind of put, I don't know if you can put red purple kind of in that same category, but they kind of want to do like a similar thing, right? They're trying to go under you.
Yeah.
So after you kind of see that, like, what kind of adaptations can you make?
So against aggro, and if you know it's an open list, for example, I guess my top 32 match against green purple hyper aggro, the strategy is really just a hard mulligan for Morph and Tink. Because those 2 cards together will shut down your opponent. Especially if you know the list isn't playing Befuddle. Befuddle could slow down your game plan, but ultimately his list wasn't playing Befuddle, so I knew that my Morph could always stick. Luckily though, if you are able to keep Morph, Ursula Deceiver Vol, and Tink with like a Storm or a Strength, those cards could just instantly win you the game. Yeah, and that's kind of what happened in my top 32 matchup. I had Morph, Ursula Deceiver of all, Double Storm, and Tink both games. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we wanted to run the 4 Morph
Exactly.
4 Tink, right? Like, it's extremely consistent to be able to kind of deal with those kind of aggro strategies.
Yeah.
So now, like, I guess the next thing is, like, you see the mirror, like, what kind of things are you looking for in particular?
Now that we've played the mirror, now that I've played the mirror and we've tested it a bit now, yeah, like I think it was valid for Zan to go for the 7 mull and try to get the Shift Diablo. It's having that on the play or on the draw, just without your opponent having it, just it could just really crush you. But it also does lead to some risky situations where you don't get a playable hand if you toss back some playable cards, but maybe that's something to explore.
Yeah, the risk is definitely, I would say, worth the reward, and
100%.
I think people are definitely tossing their whole hand to try to find that Diablo shift specifically in the mirror as well. Cool. All right. So here's the mulligan strategy that we're gonna go with. Let's say we're doing it blind.
Blind? All right.
Yeah.
Give it a cut. You should always cut your opponent's deck. You never know if they're gonna cheat.
Yeah. So I guess you can just lay out the hands, yeah.
Yeah. So we got the Morph, the Pete's, Hypnotize, Ursula, Sudden Chill. We're gonna talk about Bruno and Big Diablo. So what I'm doing blind, I'm actually.
Let's say you're on the play first.
Oh, I'm on the play. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. So if I'm on the play, I think I'm keeping these two and sending everything else back.
So why are you not keeping Ursula?
So I'm not keeping Ursula on the play blind because I honestly expected to play against a lot of RP or green purple, and they are kind of song limited, and they don't really keep a lot of songs, or they don't keep songs in their opening mulligan. I think there's like some mulligan strategies that RP players have that they keep friends, but I feel like it's kind of greedy into this green meta or into a green meta, especially since the relevance of green purple, they do play Ursula Deceiver and green yellow, which is one of their bad matchups. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
So let's say on the draw, how would you also do this mulligan?
So I would actually keep Ursula Deceiver on the draw because it's kind of counterintuitive to what I just said, but I think RP does keep friends when they're on the play because they are down that one card. So they do need to be drawing more cards, and friends draws 2 cards. But it's also good against Steel Song, and you kind of need Ursula Deceiver on the draw against Steel Song, and you're always keeping Diablo no matter what. This card's insanely good. Yeah. I would actually consider keeping Pete sometimes, but that's not when you're blind. I only keep Pete in some matchups.
Okay, so let's say you do your mulligan. So you don't have to shuffle. Let's just say we just draw the 5 off the top.
Sure.
And let's think about like how we would try to play this hand.
Oh, this is horrible.
So let's say you kind of end up in these like spots sometimes. Like, what is your kind of like strategy with this hand like going forward?
My strategy with this hand actually isn't bad at all. Oh my god, actually pretty good. I'm looking to develop both of these Diablos, and being able to protect them with Pete's. Ideally, you are able to play the Ursula Deceiver to see if they have any ways to, even if it's like, even if it's against like red purple or like green purple or something, just having the 2 body and knowing what they're playing, and seeing if they have an out to Diablo at least, is good enough information to be able to play it down on 3, and potentially play on turn 4 as well. So
what would you ink here?
I would ink. I am sending, we don't talk about Bruno, to the inkwell and passing.
Okay, so I guess one of I think the main things, especially like if you end up in the mirror, is like you need some amount of songs to try to overload your opponent if you have like a Diablo shift, right? Because if you can't shift Diablo with a song, then it kind of loses its value.
Yeah.
So is there any like value in kind of keeping this Bruno for like shifting purposes, or do you think it's just the best ink blind?
It seems like the best ink blind, only because I could draw Morph off the top, and that turn 2 Morph looks a lot better than a turn 2 Ursula Deceiver, and I have the Beast on 3. And then I could potentially just hold the Diablos in my hand, either as cards that I can play to overwhelm my opponent once they exhaust all of their removal, or like character removal on my Beast that gets shifted. And then at that point, you're just like turning the game in your favor if you're gonna get both of these on the board.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So maybe you can do a couple more.
Yeah, sure. Hopefully this is helpful to whoever's watching this video. If
Is it okay your mic's not on?
It should be on.
It's on?
It's on. As long as there's like the red bar thing, we're fine. Shout out to our production crew.
Shout out to you.
Okay, let's do another hand. And a good cut. Oh my goodness. These mats are so hard to play with. Okay, that's 6. 7. Okay. Oh, Chill, Deceiver, Anna, Bruno, Tinkerbell, Strength. All right, this is a great example of send 7 and hope for the best.
So is there any merit in keeping Ursula here?
Blind.
Like, yeah, because earlier you said like, you know, on the draw you would keep Ursula.
Yes.
So would that strategy change if you didn't open Diablo?
Yes, 100%. It would definitely change. Having at least like something to do on turn 2 feels very good in this deck. Either Ursula for information, or being able to rip a song, or well, best turn 2 is Morph for sure. Yeah.
So you would keep this on the play as well.
I would keep this on the play as well.
So earlier you said like with the Morph Diablo, you keep Morph Diablo and not Ursula Diablo, because you have that Diablo, you kind of have to adjust your strategy, right? And
exactly,
at least hedge a little bit against like, you know, just not being able to play something on two.
Yeah, I feel like on the play though, it feels better to send more cards away to be able to find that baby Diablo. Even if it is like Prince John or like Ursula Deceiver of all like those powerhouse cards, because you should be able to draw them eventually. Like we play so many of them, we play so many good cards you can play on turn 3 that like you should see one either in your mulligan or in the first like 3 cards.
Okay, yeah, let's do the 6. Let's see what we kind of get from here.
Pretty sure it's gonna be like a shift Diablo. I can feel it.
Surely, yes.
Come on. And it's not. This is actually poo-poo. This is very bad. This kind of looks like my hand I had in the finals.
So, like, let's say you end up in these kind of spots. Like, what are you trying to do to try to, like, salvage yourself out of this situation?
What I'm looking to do is try to get these big guys on the board. And even though it seems very greedy, it seems like it's going to be the best thing that's going to come off. Or be my strategy. Or I'm hoping for a Prince John or something to at least be able to stabilize.
I guess one question some people have is like, you know, Anna costs 3, right? And sometimes you don't have like a turn 3 play.
Yeah.
Is there ever a situation where you want to just like play Anna as like a 2/3 quest for 2 kind of card?
Yes, there is. But it's extremely rare. I don't think I ever did it this weekend. But I feel like if you really just can't play something on 3, this is probably the best thing you could. If this is the best thing you can do, you're playing it no matter what.
I mean, this situation, like you have Storm, right? For example. Yeah. So is it like you're gonna try to like just hard cast this Storm if you end up, you know, not drawing anything you can play, or do you want to like play Anna and then kind of sing Storm or?
Yeah, I am not very comfortable with hard casting Storm on 3. I feel like it's pretty weak unless you're trying to kill like Diablo. Even then it feels pretty weak. You feel like you're pretty behind at that spot because they also draw the card off Storm. But at least like singing it lets you at least like dig a little deeper and see if you can play a card.
I mean, the deck usually will probably find like a 3, right? Because I think out of all the cards, the 3 slot is the most occupied.
Yes.
So I think that spot usually doesn't come up, right? So
yeah.
It's probably something you don't have to worry about, and eventually you'll kind of, like you said, like dig yourself to the cards that you need.
I think most times your turn 3 is either going to be playing a clean Diablo, shifting Beast, or playing Ursula Deceiver of all, and then I guess in some spots, or like even like rarer than like not having a shift Beast or something is like playing just Prince John on turn 3.
Yeah.
Or sometimes even playing Pete. Like that's come up a lot. Playing Pete on turn 3 to protect your shifted Diablo. Yes.
Yeah. So I guess one other kind of thing is like, because there's so many kind of 3s in the deck.
Yeah.
Like what kind of sequencing are you kind of looking for? Like if you have a Diablo and a Prince John and like an Ursula in your hand, like what are the kind of conditions where you would play like one of those on 3 and then like the other on 4?
No, we can bring an example.
Let's do an example.
Yeah, so let's see.
Let's say like a Diablo.
Okay, so let's say I don't open the Stone Cold Nuts and maybe like something like this as our easy example. So these 7 cards are like your start. You have Morph, Hypnotize, Prince John, Sudden Chill, Ursula 2, another Sudden Chill. Now this seems like, either seems really good or really bad depending on how you look at it and what matchup you're against. If you're against Hyper Aggro, good luck, but at least you have the Morph going for you. But I think this hand is like very, very, very strong against all the control matchups and especially against Ruby Amethyst. I think after this weekend, people are going to respect Morph a lot more, so they're probably going to try to brawl the Morph before it gets the Beast shifted on it. But having this this hand specifically, no matter like what I draw, like, okay, unless it's like 3 uninkables. Unless it's 3 uninkables, I'm looking to play Ursula Deceiver Vol on turn 3, Ursula Deceiver on turn 2, or Morph on turn 2. It's probably Ursula Deceiver just to see if they have the Brawl or not. If they've got the Brawl, I'll try not to play Ursula Deceiver Vol because I'm looking to double Sing Sudden Chill and play Prince John, and eventually Hypnotize Sudden Chill, just to rip more cards and draw more cards. But yeah, that's like kind of a gameplay. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that makes sense. Because I guess like I think what people kind of when they pick up the deck is like the sequencing, right? Right. This is probably one of the most complicated decks in the game, I would say. Right. And it's just like we want to give the viewer some kind of basic heuristics or play patterns that they can kind of follow. Sure. In order to kind of get their feet wet, right, and get started into the deck.
Right. I guess like we can just like run like a scenario where like I show my inking decisions as well without like considering any of like the hand or board texture of my opponent. We could just like not even mulligan, honestly. Actually, we'll do like a full run through. So like this is my hand. I have Morph Tank, which is like what you love to see, but I also Ursula Deceiver and Diablo at the same time. So I'm probably sending back all this. I'm hoping for a Shift Beast. Actually, there's some merit in keeping this when you're on the play.
I mean, if you're keeping that, are you also keeping Tank then? Because that's like against some matchups, that's just the straight nuts, right? Yeah. And like how much regret would you have if like you didn't keep it and it was actually like hyper aggro? Yeah. So I guess like kind of related question is like, you know, when you win the die roll, like, are you picking to go first or go second?
That's a great question. I think I flip-flopped a lot over the weekend just to like see what would do better, because again we just picked this deck up. Like we didn't know if it was like amazing on the draw. We kind of knew that it was like extremely good on the play if you really have to shift Diablo. But what I remember about set 4 was that the Bucky mirror for green steel was that it felt like the person on the play was always favored if both players didn't open shift Diablo. And opening shift Diablo is like no easy task. So unless you're mulling 7. So yeah, you're right. You're definitely right. Yeah. There's like a lot of merit in keeping this hand.
But like I guess like what is like the risk versus reward? Like let's say you just like send back the Ursula and the Tinkerbell and the rest of the hand to try to get, you know, Shift Diablo versus like, you know, you have a guaranteed kind of like Tinkerbell play. Exactly. Not guaranteed, but like, you know, it's especially when you're on the play, it's like, you know, higher chance of it happening, right? Yeah. So it's kind of like what are the kind of cost benefit analysis that you do when you see this opener?
Well, I also feel like the cost benefit analysis, at least in this deck, is that we play like a decent amount of uninkables, and you really don't want these to be in your inking decisions. If that's your game plan. If this is your game plan to play these 4 together, you're gonna need to draw like 3 more uninkables, 3 or 4 more uninkables. Yeah. And you're already tossing back uninkables, so like more than likely you're gonna see an uninkable. Watch 1, 2, 3. Just kidding, no uninkable.
But I guess like you said, right? Like, do you try to keep any inkables? Because I know some people are like very conservative and they're like, you know, I want to keep this one card because it's my guaranteed ink for the turn. Do you think this deck kind of follows that pattern, or do you think it's better to kind of just send it all back and try to look for that Diablo shift line?
So I feel like it's not as punishing as Steel Song, because like all of our uninkables are low to the ground. Like they're 3 cost uninkables. Right? All of them are 3 costs? Yeah.
We have Prince John, Diablo, Anna, Storm, and Anna, right?
Yeah, all 3.
Literally all 3.
Literally all 3. Anna's, so like you're not worried about playing those cards on 3 or like keeping them in your hand because you can't get the 3 ink. Yeah. And those are all good cards to just play 4/3 ink, or when you're at 4 ink or something. If you don't have a turn 5 play, like Anna is just like, you know, a card that lets you do that, lets you do things for 5 ink.
Yeah. And I think something else I kind of learned from like Steel Song is like, I would say Let the Storm Rage On and Diablo are somewhat like, you know, when you play them, immediately they basically turn into inkables in a way. Yeah. Because it's like if you think about it, like your hand could be clogged with like some Diablo and some like Let the Storm Rage On, but as soon as you play one of them, you can like, you know, sing it with it, and you basically turn 2 cards like live, right, from your deck. And it's very different than like, let's say you play Ruby Amethyst and like you have a bunch of like B preps or like ladies, because those actually you have to deploy one at a time. And Diablo Shift, you can just go right away. Diablo Shift, Storm, or even like just dump the Storm right with the Diablo Shift. So I think the uninkable count seems high, but I think it's still kind of low because of the way you kind of utilize them, like you said. Yeah.
You utilize literally every single one of your uninkables. Like they're not bricks. Like how in Steel Song, like if you draw a double wheel, you're sad. That's why I didn't like playing Steel Song. Is like those spots where, oh shit, I drew the nuts. But in those spots where like you do draw the double wheel, like you can't like really either you do recover from it somehow, or you're kind of just like -1 in your hand. But this deck, like if you draw double Storm, double Anna, like I guess even having like multiple Annas in hand, it may look bad, but wow, no, it actually is one of like the strongest things you can do if you can get to 5 ink and just deploy Annas every single turn. It's like playing like what?
It's like playing the ladies kind of in a way, like in Ruby, like a Tremaine or like a Medusa every single turn. Like you're not even that unhappy about it, right?
Exactly. Yeah, you're either destroying a card or you're taking a card out of their hand. Like hand destruction, board destruction, very good.
Yeah.
So we'll actually play this hand.
Right,
yeah, or also play Shun, yeah, and then you get a free card. All right, that's going in the bloopers. All right, so for this hand, I don't know. I feel like I would keep a P just to protect my Diablo longer. Or maybe that's too greedy.
Honestly, to be honest, I'm probably full keeping this.
Really?
I mean, I think the thing about this hand specifically is like, you know how like, let's say you're in the mirror and they like try to dump your songs and stuff. So at least you can like kind of insulate yourself in a way by having more songs. If they only dump one, then you can kind of like keep the other one for that shift, and you have that like Diablo Shift Storm.
Yeah.
Right. Usually, if you get to open that, you basically win the game, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I think this hand is the key. Like, what are you kind of thinking?
I'm thinking at least toss back the Bruno, because I want to always like be able to dump the songs. I don't like keeping out at least one song in my hand. Actually, it depends if you're on the play or on the draw, right?
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
I feel like on the draw, I toss one song, but I think if I'm on the play, I keep. Yeah, I keep and I maybe toss P out of greed. Yeah. So I feel like I already hit like the jackpot when I hit these 2 cards.
I mean, playing Pete on 3 is actually not even bad here, right?
It's not bad at all. No.
And I think, like you said, like let's say you do toss back the Bruno, like and they rip kind of like your other song, like a Storm or your Strength with Ursula, then it's like a little bit harder to do kind of that like nut play, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I feel like there's some merit in just like keeping the Bruno, and like you just like inked whatever you get off the top, and like if they rip one of your songs, at least you still have like 2 more in a way, right? In order to kind of insulate yourself against that.
Yeah, but that's like only considering the mirror and stuff. Like this hand is broken against every other every other deck. It's really we're just thinking about the mirror mostly, since like that's kind of like what we've been focusing on. So yeah, I guess we'll just play it through. I mean, is it even worth playing through a Shift Diablo hand?
Sure. Let's go through like inking decisions. Let's say this is just your hand. Like, let's say you decide to keep it. Like, what are you inking and what are you playing?
All right, so I'm gonna ink. We're gonna talk about Bruno and then play the Diablo to see my opponent's hand. It doesn't matter what they have in this spot. But yeah, let's draw. We're definitely shifting Diablo, discarding a Storm. If they played a 1-cost character with any amount of health,
let's just say you Storm here.
I'm gonna Storm here, yeah. And then I'm gonna draw. Always draw first before you ink. That's like a lot of mistakes that I made when I was learning. It's just definitely better because you have, instead of like having like just these 3 cards as your inking decisions, you now have 4 cards that are inking decisions. Since I have the second Ursula Deceiver, I'm probably inking it because unless I'm in the mirror. If I'm in the mirror, I feel like I'm inking the Strength, expecting them to play Ursula Deceiver.
Makes a lot of sense, yeah.
Yeah, so I'll probably just ink this and then play the Ursula Deceiver. Draw a card for turn, or for their turn, and then draw a card for my turn. Okay, so if they didn't do the thing against me, well, they couldn't have because I stormed their baby Diablo at this point probably. If they weren't able to, I guess, like kill Diablo with like Baboom or something, I'm playing Keats somehow, probably inking the Morph. Unless I know that they have a second song in their hand, then I'm probably gonna just rip it immediately.
So for Morph, would you say you play just mostly on 2 and kind of just inking it past that, or are you ever saving more for kind of like, you know, like on turn 4 you can play like Ursula plus morph, and then on turn 5 you can do like a shift plus like something else. Like, do you think you're mostly inking morph after 2, or you're like kind of saving it potentially?
It really depends on the matchup, and just like how many, like if I'm inking beasts and like tinks early game, I'm probably just inking morphs as well. But it does come up sometimes where like you do need to have like multiple characters on turn 4 so that it like opens your Strength of Raging Fire to be able to kill characters that have like 4 health, 5 health that early.
Sense,
Like especially small C's or not small C2, Emboldened Warrior.
Yeah, CC,
yeah. Very, very, very powerful. You definitely want to get that off the board as soon as possible in fear of a shift CC later on, or just it singing friends for free. Yeah, that card's very good. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe this turn 3, it's probably just playing Pete. Yeah.
Like by default, it's probably just like ink.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, whatever. Like if you have something to kill, you can like strength it and like kind of ink the morph, right?
Yeah. It really depends on something to kill, but it's probably inking the morph here. And then quest, draw 2 probably, draw for turn, draw for them. Yeah. If they can't really kill this at this point, I feel like from this spot you should be able to just win. If Diablo 6 for this long, you already have 3 damage from Strength Raging Fire to be able to remove any of their threats that they played from their turn 3, or even chill, just to rip a card out of their hand. They should be down on card advantage.
So I guess one kind of tip for newer like green steel players, like you have like an Ursula Deceiver and a Sudden Chill in your hand, and you want to deploy both. Like which one would you deploy first?
Oh yeah, that's actually super tough. Yeah, again, matchup dependent. But I think most of the time I like getting information first, just so I know what their rationale was in discarding. I guess it can go both ways, but most of the time it's better to do this one first in case they have that song, so that they don't just discard the song from Sudden Chill. But I guess in like, what matchups would discard the song first?
Oh, I was just gonna say exactly what you're gonna say. I think it makes total sense to play Ursula first, just so if they only have one song and they dump it, you don't just get like completely punished, right?
Yeah.
So I would say like in general, heuristics is always better to play Ursula Deceiver first before Sudden Chill, in case they just have that one song and they know you have Ursula, or maybe you made a mistake or something, that they'll dump the song first before kind of dumping like other cards.
Yeah, I feel like against like a deck like green purple, like they played 4 songs, they played 4 friends. It's probably not even worth playing Ursula Deceiver and Sudden Chill in the same turn. It's probably worth just play the Sudden Chill and then ink the Ursula Deceiver. Unless like you have like 20 cards in hand, then you might as well play both. But yeah. That's a good point you bring that up though.
Yeah, and I think the other thing we should maybe on turn 5, I think one of the important things is like you shouldn't just use like discard cards like quote unquote for fun. Right?
For fun.
Yeah, because I think one of the important things that I think new green steel players should kind of consider is like when you discard cards, you should be able to try to discard the last few cards, right? Because like the last few cards are actually the most important cards in their hand usually.
Exactly.
And you don't want to kind of, dump cards prematurely, right? So what do you think about like, saving your discard for those like kind of key turns?
Yeah, that brings up a lot of like, I guess like the technical parts of this deck that like you have intention, I guess, when you're using your discard. I guess like one good example is like having the double chill with Ursula on turn 4 after playing a Prince John. Like that in itself, like that gets the value. Like no matter what you're doing that, even if they have like 4 cards in hand, you bring them down to 2. But then the following turn, you've got like, I guess like in previous versions of this deck, like they didn't have like the Hypnotize or like the Anna to play on turn 5. But having those cards really makes your opponent think about like, okay, like I have 2 cards left in hand, like, or maybe I guess 2 cards left in hand if they don't play anything, and they ink for the turn. Man, like, do I want to get rid of like my turn 6 play or like my turn 5 play? Yeah, that's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah. So I guess the summary is like you want to be able to try to discard as much as possible in a single turn. And I think if you're able to do that, you'll have a lot more success with the deck.
Yeah. There's also like a lot of spots where you draw the extra chill off of your Deceiver of all double chill, and just like being able to just either hard cast it or like sing it with something that even if it exposes it to challenge a challenge death or a challenge banish rather, you should just do it because chances are it'll put you ahead from that spot.
Yeah. Makes total sense.
All right. Anything else? Anything else about the discard deck?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Green Steel is like a very tough deck. Like I think we only covered like maybe the surface of it.
Small percentage.
Yeah, I feel like there's so much more to like dig into, especially like if we ever do like a matchup review, like a Green Steel match review. I think there's a lot to learn from those kinds of things. Yeah. All right. Thank you for watching.
Tune in next. Cool. So I guess are you going to Seattle?
Am I? Should I go?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Okay,
so what are your goals for Seattle if you do go? Hypothetically speaking.
Yeah. It would be fun to day 2 again. But honestly, my goal is actually to help raise up the rest of my friends to possibly get a day 2, or even an invite. Ideally, an invite, right? We want to have as many people from the Bay Area to go to Continentals as possible, be able to play in nationals. Yeah, that'd be really fun.
Yeah, because I think something I've learned in particular was like the power of like numbers, right? Like being able to kind of bounce ideas off of like-minded individuals, and like we can all kind of raise each other up in that way, right?
Yeah.
And the best way to do it is just when you see someone that they can actually be helpful, right? Like we should all test together. So I think that it's very important to have like a good group of people to kind of play test with that you trust. Right.
Yeah, very important to have a community, people that you can play with in order to improve. Let's see, what else was there?
Okay, Chris, do you have any shout-outs you want to give before we end this?
Yeah, firstly, I'd like to shout out you, Ed, for inviting me to the podcast or whatever we want to call this. And I'd like to shout out my friends for playtesting with me. Josie, Brian, Dennis, Marshall, Judy, and Edmund, just to name a few. And yeah, I'd like to also thank the rest of the people in the Bay Area for all the love and support. And also shout out to Dale Bolito for giving me the courage to play Green Steel in Toronto. Thank you.
Cool. And till next time.
Wait, you want to do a better outro?
Hey, what's your outro be?
This is going to be the outro.
Okay. Hey guys, this is the end of episode 1. So let us know if you enjoyed the format that we did, or if there's anything missing, you can let us know in the comments.
Like reaction videos or something?
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a good idea. Let us know if you want us to see reactions or like commentary over some of the feature matches that happened.
Yeah, that'd be fun. We do it here?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Let's get it.
All right.
See you.
Goodbye.
Next time.